Look, you're here to talk to investors. Yeah. Investor sentiment has improved towards South Africa. The unity government seems to have been a major turning point. Cyril Ramaphosa's decision to do that seems to have really changed the view of the economy. What now needs to happen to keep this on track, to keep sentiment buoyant? What message are you bringing to investors here in London?
Well, firstly, let me greet you, Kai and Kriti, and thank you for welcoming me this morning. Well, the first thing I want to say is that the government of national unity is working. It's well and good. In fact, I'm here in the UK with a number of ministers, and our message is very clear. I want to say to the investors here, come to South Africa. We are open for business. We want you to come and invest in various sectors of our economy. We decided as the GNU, as we call it, that we shouldn't spend time quarreling about this or that. Let's focus. And the important thing for us is growing the economy and inclusive growth, create jobs, and deal with the things that affect people the most, like cost of living. Those are the things that we are focusing on, and we believe we are on the right course.
The economy has gone from growing at kind of 0.2, i.e. flat, to 2%, which is certainly a big improvement. We've got a budget coming up. What kind of numbers do you think are achievable? Do you have the fiscal space in that budget to be able to solidify this growth and to further enhance it, to deal with some of the issues that you've just been referencing? What can we see in that budget? What should we expect in that budget? What should investors be looking for in that budget?
Well, the budget is very tight. As you know, immediately after COVID, we took a dive. But the good news is that we are now on a positive upturn. We think that by next year, we could be growing at about 1.5% of GDP. That's good news. But we don't think we'll have all the money we need to do all the things we need. So we are prioritizing. We got a lot of ministers and we said, look, maybe cut here, but put the most important things first, especially those things that will help us grow the economy, create jobs. We are also looking at beneficiating our minerals. In the past, we're like an extractive economy. We take our minerals out. Now we are saying to investors, come in South Africa, let's produce finished goods here. Let's ensure that we can train people, because there are a lot of people who need skills to produce new goods. So that's our approach now. We think we shouldn't continue this approach of exporting our minerals. So slowly, we would now focus on local beneficiation.
You mentioned the cost of living, and of course that being a key focus for the government. You also mentioned how much pressure the budget is facing. Which basic resources, basic services that the government provides could be hit the hardest in your view? Well,
we have been trying to provide housing to poor people. We think that's one area where we're going to have a lot of challenge. We are continuing, but probably not at the rate in which we would have wanted. But there are other methods that we use. Instead of building houses for poor people, we give them land that is service and assist them to build their own houses. At least we still are able to provide grants to the elderly, children who don't have parents or fathers. So those grants are protected as we speak, just to cushion the poor. But we are shifting more resources to economic activity. We want to grow the economy, particularly through infrastructure investments, build new roads, dams, new railway lines, because we want to ensure that those areas where we need to export goods through the coast, we have the rail lines working. So those are the things that we are focusing on. We are investing now a lot in infrastructure.
Well, it feels like that infrastructure investment, at least for the last couple of months, have shown up in the electricity story. We have had no power cuts in the last couple of months in South Africa, which, of course, is a crucial piece, perhaps at the expense of water shortages, though. And I'm curious how you and your government are looking to address the issues around water infrastructure.
In fact, a few months ago, the president said to me, look, we seem to be winning with this load shedding problem, but let's focus on water now. So as we speak, there is a task team, which the president has asked me to convene and chair, which is looking at water. I've been traveling around the country now looking at that matter to ensure we don't get to a crisis. We are happy that with load shedding, we're now almost 200 days with lights on, and we think that we will not go back. We will keep the lights on because we're fixing the power stations. We are actually inviting the private sector to come and invest in energy, in renewables. And once they do so, I don't think we'll have a challenge of going back to the dark days where we have to have load shedding. So pretty confident, but we're now dealing with the issue of water. We do get a lot of our water from Lesotho, which is one of our neighboring countries. Yeah. But we also have our own dams. Most of them are full. Challenge is reticulation in some communities. I visited Limpopo just 2 weeks ago, where people were complaining the dam is full, but we're not getting water. So we're sorting out that challenge of reticulation.
Is there the money to do that? Do you have the necessary resources, the necessary finances to resolve the water crisis?
In fact, in some of the provinces, yes. Right. In Limpopo, when I asked them, but why don't you reticulate? They said, look, we can't fix this problem in 2 years. I said, no, we don't have 2 years.
Yep.
I want you to sort it now. They said, if you give us more money. So I said to them, we will.
Okay, and the money's there, yeah?
Yeah, we've got some money.
China looks like it's wanting to kick its economy into a higher gear. Yeah. That's what we're talking about this morning on this programme. It's impacting Europe. What impact does it have on South Africa? You've indicated that you are in the, as we all know, in the resource materials sector. Yeah. China's a big user of all of those things. What impact do you think could you see on the global markets as a result of a stronger Chinese economy?
Well, China has taken a lot of interest in South Africa. In fact, as you may be aware, the president was in China recently with a lot of our ministers to talk about trade, etc. Chinese companies are also investing a lot in South Africa. You are quite right. We export a lot of our raw materials to China, and we have said to them, we're going to slow that down because we want beneficiation. Of course, you can't do it overnight, but long term, we are saying to them, come and do the finished products here in South Africa. So that's a discussion we are having with them, and they are agreeable.
Let's talk about the other news over the weekend. Of course, China was one piece of it. The other is what's going on in the Middle East. What is South Africa's view on Israel's bombing campaign against Hezbollah in Lebanon?
Well, as you know, we went to the ICJ as South Africa, and we continue to call for ceasefire because we think it's important that the Palestinians must be given an opportunity to have their own independent state, living side by side with Israel. So we're going to continue on that trajectory of ensuring that there is peace. We can't accept the killing of innocent people, women and children. And so we're working with other countries. We think it's an important moral stand that we should all take to call for peace and call for ceasefire and make sure that things can be resolved through negotiations rather than war and violence and so on. So our standpoint is very clear on the issue of Palestine. We want a free Palestine, And that can be achieved.
Will you be adding the Hezbollah development to the case in the ICJ?
Well, we have not finalized our new approach there, but we are likely to say, let there be peace everywhere. We don't want now an extension of war into other areas. So even if we don't add these areas, but I think our message is clear. Stop the war. Let's negotiate. Let there be peace. Let people live side by side and build their lives.